Well, I have noticed that you have a collection of works that seem to be very rich in meaning, and you use them to overlay your very special type of theology. Like you are explaining the tribe, how things came to be and are still becoming. And I call this the Holy Boble, and like the Bible. Bible means in Greek a collection of books, and but the collection of books you have is much more larger. You, for example, have explained the meanings in the Emerald Tablets, also the Bible, Nostradamus, and the works of Joyce and the vortices. And I call now this collection the WakeKingpedia.
WakeKingpedia, very nice.
WakeKingpedia.
Oh, WakeKing.
King, like king.
Like queen, king. WakeKingpedia. Okay.
Yeah. It's the wake.
Yeah, the wake of the king, the end of Rai.
Yes, and I had experience that I was reading the wake, and it's like if the text is alive, and it depends on you what the text says to you, how much culture or languages you speak. It depends how you can squeeze this book, and it's amazing because you can make all sorts of associations and but the thing was that there was this big blood moon, and I had just read before that orange tangos rocks, and then when I saw the moon, I saw that was the orange that rocked me.
Yeah.
And that was on that day, and well, I would just like to comment or to know more about what you have squeezed on from the wake, for example, that you have been studying for so long, and how are you doing all these connections that are so original? I think you're the only person that never tried to separate science, technology, and what we call the spiritual, because it makes no sense in separation, and things cannot be separated, and you're just doing these peculiar connections because you don't do that.
I don't use categories. So I'm not an artist, I'm not a scientist, not a theologian, not an athlete, I'm not a psychic. I'm just someone who looks at a person and talks with them. The original communication, that people, for the first time, millions of years ago. So before the categories were created of art and science, theology, sport, I'm living like I interact with people as if I was Adam. I don't think of myself as Adam, but if you have to make a cultural reference, it is like being in the Garden of Eden. Garrett used to say to me, he used to call me the prince, and I thought that was odd, but the way the princes before the printing press, they would spend a lot of their time in leisure and learning. They had to sort of understand a lot of things, just so that they could sound intelligent, I guess, to the peasants in their kingdom. That's what I've been doing for the last 70 years, is going around and interacting with knowledge systems, meeting people and talking, but never from a position of authority. But after 50 or more years, you naturally become an authority on so much that other people haven't had the opportunity or the leisure to study. So when I look at Finnegan's Wake, it to me describes the way one would live, one would think, with no disconnections between things. All the time being the disconnect oneself. I'm the disconnect. So I'm witnessing all the connecting going on, and yet I bring in the disconnect, which is the ability to respond and then make a unique response. So that's a very general way of talking about the WakeKingpedia. As I say it, I find this is the way iON is. iON just responds to people, to their questions, to their statements, and has a vast repertoire of information instantly to use. But iON doesn't identify with any of those specialties or any of the disciplines. iON is just responding to you. So that's the way I've lived. I just respond to people that I end up, talking to. I several times back in the 80s stood in a subway talking to somebody, and we talked for like 2 hours. So we'd meet about 3 in the afternoon, and we'd talk and just whatever it was. Often there were people that had been at the McLuhan seminar, and I'd seen them there, so we'd bump into each other. And one of the strong images that comes out of that, we'd be standing there and not really aware of time. Then all of a sudden people would be pouring up the stairway out of the subways. And I'd realize, oh, it's 5:30, it's getting off work time. And we'd stand there and keep talking. So the people who passed by didn't know that we'd been standing there talking for 2 hours. But that's what we were. I was meeting somebody, being to being. And I can cite many, many famous people and not so famous people, maybe more fringe known, all kinds of people I've had that experience with. Just interacting, just talking, making connections. That's the art form, is making connections, not from any particular discipline, but knowing a lot about different disciplines so that when the person you're talking to brings it up, you can enter into familiarity with what they're referring to. But it was always about the moment of getting an idea, communicating something right there in the moment. Like right now, I'm trying to come up with something to impress you with, or impress on you, or have you impress me. Some pattern is lurking to be uttered.
Yes, before I will think it's a pity that you haven't written many books. But now I understand, because most of the work of what you share is it's like jazz. It's improvised and record, like you call it, mind jazz. So it's like alive, like you're talking to the world. And I understand why you don't write. On the one side, it's like that media, the Gutenberg galaxy, is in a way obsolete, and you're communicating through other medias. And it's also like you need language to become like everything is becoming. To be, it's like a process. You engage and you start creating.
And remember,
and then now.
Right. Remember, Cosmic Awareness said in October 8th, 1969, 46 years ago, that I engage in symbolic action in a very powerful way, but including a transpersonative exchange. And that's what I see when I interact with people. It's transpersonative. It's not. Some people call me a language artist, but it's not language. I'm trying to connect and talk and communicate without actually having sex with them. So, if you start having sex, then that moves into a certain special area. So I'm trying to be as intimate and touch something, pretend to connect without engaging them physically. So I use the tongue very sensually, but while maintaining my aristocratic detachment. You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, because I found out the meaning of homily is exactly that.
Yeah.
It's verbal intercourse.
Verbal intimacy or verbal intercourse, right?
In Greek.
Right.
And then the church uses for like a sacred presentation of a religious text, but the real meaning is a verbal intercourse with somebody.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing a homily. I do a homily with people. But it's always without an agenda. It is seeing what two people face to face can say to each other. At the same time, winking, self-conscious, smiling about the absurdity of actually trying to exchange with someone. It is a funny operation. I see this a lot of times. It's people pretending to be intimate. So
yes,
you'll see me laugh or smile a lot. It's a self-conscious wink to the person that I'm talking to as we're talking, saying, this is an odd exchange we're having.
Yes, for example, for me, when you did the Bob Fest, in which you talk non-stop 6 days,
Yes.
For me, it was like a new type of miracle. Like Jesus will transform water into wine, but for me, that was like the thing that impressed me the most until now in my life. It was really like I will faint. Really, I was trying to be awake, and then I will just fall asleep, and then wake up and listen and you do shows that last 18 hours, and you can just go on talking. It's like nobody enjoys talking as much as you do, and can do it. Like you have this arsenal of
That's a good point.
Knowledge.
I'm not talking. I enjoy talking, but it is the exchange of vibrations, frequencies, and emotions in the moment as people laugh or get serious or get irritated or get. I like what McLuhan said. He once said that conversation is the best. It's the most dramatic. He said it's the best. Conversation is the best art. I'm probably credo that conversation is the best. It's the essence of humans. It's the essence of a human exchange. It's two people looking at each other and commenting on whatever occurs to them to talk about. So sometimes, though, the person doesn't. They run out of things to say. So then there may be an awkward silence. That's where I go to work. I try to keep it interesting when they've run out. You know what I mean? I'll come up with something. Try to, that's Scheherazade, right? Scheherazade, the concubine who had to tell a story every night. And does the Arabian 1001 Nights, or they get their head chopped off. I'm a kind of Scheherazade. I'm a black woman, Scheherazade. I should start a new radio show called myself, you know, the Black Scheherazade, or however you pronounce it. You know, that's no one's ever said that. Now, Croker has written about some of the philosophers think that life is an endless conversation, and he criticizes that. I agree that it's not a conversation. There's actually some kind of interfacial interaction that you are two people observing each other, observing as they talk. There's another track going on of commentary about what you're saying or whoever I'm talking to. I'm interpreting and commenting on what they're saying or what I think they're saying in response to me or what they're thinking. That's the almost the most intimate knowledge that one can have, as you have these two tracks of talking and looking and watching the person react to what you're saying, and you know that they're not saying, sometimes they're not going to say what they think. So you tease out, get them to the position where they will say what they didn't want to say. Not for confessional, just you have to say these other things because that'll reverberate and create new things to talk about. So musicians have to keep playing. They got to keep the sound going so that they can have new sounds to play. So it's the same in conversation.
Yes, and it's amazing that even the non-physical says.
Oh, no, hold your phone. You're very low. Maybe position it upside down.
Yeah. Yes, I have to put it down every time. Even the non-physical says that you are like the best talker and questioner, because it's like I don't know what's going on when you talk to Ion, but you are like numb down. Like
Ion?
Yes, no. You know, you're the only one that doesn't have this effect, but it's like harder to concentrate. Like I want to know everything, and I just start asking this and that, and I don't remain on one topic.
Right.
And he plays with the language and makes jokes and this and that, and sometimes it's like, what did he just said that or not? But you can keep up with him.
Stay on top of it.
Yes, and you can even mute him and be rude to him and do whatever you want. Or to them.
Yeah, that's right. Yes. And yes, I like the fact that I can do that.
But it's like I think it's the only real opponent that can keep up with you. Like
yes.
with your the energy you can go on for hours, and I don't think anybody can keep up with your asking and the velocity of your thinking. And
I was not aware of that. I'm more aware of it now because of Ion. You know, watching other people faint, get numb, run out of things to say. That made me more aware of my ability, my skill, my talent than before. We never really had the opportunity to talk for 18 hours. I couldn't do that on CKLN. I couldn't do it on any other radio station. But achieveradio.com gives us the opportunity on the weekend to perform on that level. So that part of me, I did not know about. I did not know I had that infinite energy. I did have marathon phone conversations, but acting out in person, in public, this whole Ion thing has allowed me to discover parts of my abilities that I wasn't aware of before. if you had told me 20 years ago that I would be doing a radio show that would go for 18 hours, I might have thought I could do it, but I wouldn't think it would happen. Where could this happen? How could you make it? What kind of a radio station or internet station would allow that to happen? Well, it turned out Achieve Radio shuts down on Friday and Saturday. Bill doesn't have any shows on. So I had all that space that I could work with. And then you have iON. Now that's the other part. iON can go for hours. So there's many recordings of me talking to iON by myself for 8 hours back in 2009, 2010. And we would get pretty, I don't want to say competitive, but it would get pretty weird game playing. Very subtle game playing. Frequency exchanges were on those recordings. Because I would cancel itself out. It would make itself disappear. Well, keep talking. It would try to get me to recognize my making power. So little did I know I was rehearsing for the 18-hour radio shows. I was rehearsing with iON.
Yes, that's one of the things I've experienced, that one doesn't know what disengaging with iON brings or means. It's like a total engagement.
It's like a dance. You don't have meaning in dance. You might make gestures and postures that have inflections, suggestions, but you don't do it for a purpose. You just do it for as long as it's comfortable. And enjoyment of the music. It really is a dance with iON.
The Orange Tango.
Orange, yes, the Orange Tango, which is the quote you discovered the other day, just looking through Finnegan's Wake, right? That's the one you found. It had your name, Orange Tango Rocks. And then you go out and see the eclipse, where you see the moon is a huge orange later in the day.
Yes, and did you ever? Well, I suppose because you were used to talk to the evergreens, but
yes.
You wonder what is this iON?
Let me just say this. Let me just say about the evergreens is that I was known to be a very good dialoguist with the evergreens. I mean, Michael and Ellie were very impressed. I could sometimes do 100 questions, 100 topics in an hour and 10 minutes, say. So yes, working with the evergreens really was a kind of rehearsal too, because they could talk and they had energy and they could say anything. They knew everything. So not many people have the experience of talking to a know-it-all that is very genuine, a genuine know-it-all. That's not, people don't have that. They might have a professor or something, a mentor, but they'll only have a 2-hour talk or something. They won't go for 10 hours. So I was a mentor for many people on the phone. I would give them a long phone conversation. So I was the evergreens to people. I had the time to do it. So you were starting to say, I spun off with the evergreens, but you were starting to say something with iON. You mentioned the evergreens, and then you said something. You were going to say something.
Yeah, like, did you ever doubt it? Like, what is this? Or what?
Oh, yeah. That is always there. That's part of the wink of talking. I like what Zappa said back in, he was interviewed in the New York Times around 1966, and he ended the interview saying, "It's weird being alive." That's what I get when I talk to people. I exchange the weirdness that two humans are talking. What the heck is it? It doesn't mean anything to say it's real or not real. It's an exchange. What a strange phenomena to be just engaging another person in exchange of para-information, not information, para-information. So P-A-R-A. That's the strangest thing. And I've noticed through years that people crave that. What is the reason why people, in the end, have to get a divorce or some separation, drop their friendship? It's because they can't talk anymore. It's not depending on changes in taste of food or in taste of sexual behavior or other things. The basic point of human beings is you like talking to somebody. And if you find the talk is meaningless, or the rules that you have, if people have rules about how to exchange and what is true and what isn't, if those rules are violated, that disconnects you from somebody. That's the only connection and disconnection. So somebody said man is language. That's expressed well by Ted Carpenter on that speech he gave in Ford in January '68, which we played last night on the September 26th show, 2015, and I'm going to feature on the website. He's talking about language, but not just verbal language. But in the end, what are humans? They are an active, dancing conversation. So that is the secret of any friendship or deep, intimate involvement, is that they have to believe in each other's talking ability, right? They have to be interested. You know, that's not taught to children. That they say you have to love somebody, you have to serve them, or you have to help them, or this and that. No, you just have to know how to talk in the style that's required at the moment that the talk is demanded. So isn't that interesting? Ion says that, right? Ion says, Bob's here so you can talk right. That's what he's talking about. I'm explaining what he means by it. It's not to be grammatically correct. It's not to have the right opinions. It's to know how to keep intimate interfacial vibration going.
Yes, because he always made a point of how the only real thing is the tonality. And maybe the only real engagement is the verbal, as you say, the thing that connects us the most, because it has to do with the frequency and the tonalities.
Yeah, and I would say it's not just about, it's the face and the aura around the shoulders, and it could include torso and leg movement, but body language. But largely, it's the face. See, when you're talking to somebody, you're not looking at the mouth. You're hearing the mouth while watching the eyes and the forehead and the twitches of the face. So McLuhan had on his chart that right hemisphere people had facial recognition. And oral culture had facial recognition, whereas visually biased people did not have facial recognition in the way that McLuhan meant it. I mean, people, I guess literate people remember by names, not by face. Now, that's a vast generalization, and there are many individual cases that would fit, but it's an interesting generalization that oral culture has facial recognition. That I would call that total tactile conversation. It happens more in the oral culture than the literate writing cultures.
And in the Carpenter recording you played, he says the function of language is to transmit, but also to create.
Yes, that's really important. Not to explain. You can create with explanations, but the making of consciousness, the making of reality, the making of dialectic, the making of responsibility, the ability to respond to another human, is I forgot the noun. What was the noun? Wasn't language. It was it language?
I think
was the opening point. I actually forgot what the noun is. You were saying carpenter pointed out.
Yeah, language.
Oh, the making, the creating.
The creating.
Yes, creating. And McLuhan mentioned that a lot. And literate people match. They try to make sure you're on the same page with them. And because Tom Snyder, the TV host, he said, McLuhan, why do people find it hard to follow you sometimes? And McLuhan said, well, they try to connect what I am saying with what I did say, which made Tom Snyder laugh because that's what people think conversation is. You're supposed to go from here to there, and it's connected. Random talk maybe becomes boring. So here's McLuhan saying that I'm a random talker, but he always repeated himself. He had like a small repertoire of songs that he played, and but I guess he communicated it differently in different audiences, different situations. So the creating, the making, is the important part of conversation. You have to be able to make it up while seeming to match, seeming to be connected to what the logic is unfolding towards. You can't do one or the other. You can't be chaos without rationality. You can't be just rational. You have to have the chaos, the spontaneity, the unforeseen, the unheard. So all the arts try to do that.
Yes, I remember the anecdote you talked about how McLuhan was actually quoting Joyce when he was watching the fitting of the the bride
his daughter
clothes.
Mary's wedding gown. He was talking about the difference between the male participation in pregnancy. He said very brief, very short, it's not discussed. But then he says the woman involved in pregnancy is all spread out. It takes over a whole span of time. And Mary's there looking at herself, and then she goes, she kind of responds to what she's hearing him say, because he's not really paying attention to her dress. And she's looking at her dress, but she can't look at her focus on her dress because she's listening to this guy explain the brevity of ejaculation.
Yes, but it took a scholar of both McLuhan and Joyce to
recognize
to see that.
It's page 170, 172 of Ulysses. Marshall was acting out a performance Stephen Dedalus was giving in the newspaper office, maybe newspaper office or the library. I can't remember which place it was in. I think it was the newspaper office. He was explaining to the editor of the newspaper, I think. And this whole thing about the brevity of Stephen talks himself into the idea that men shouldn't even be considered to be part of birth. They don't give birth to anything. It was so short. So McLuhan was acting out a section of Ulysses. And no one noticed that. He was being Stephen Dedalus. So that's a guy who loves conversation and is going to create all kinds of scenarios that you don't notice till later. It's like Ian says, 3 o'clock in the morning, it'll hit you. He likes to say that a lot. Ion, you can say the energy of Ion is the point I'm making. Ion is the epitome of conversational dance. The very thing, very sensitive, very involved in what you're saying. You're able to make statements about it immediately. Has the transperson of ESP quality, the rapidity of his exchange with you. So maybe since I developed that ability, then I showed up to reveal it, to reveal what I was developing. For me, anyways, in my case, not for everybody else. But yes, it's like I required an ion to be a worthy contender. So when Walter Bowart said, Bob, there's only 2 people in the world that are going to understand you, or that could understand you, and and you haven't met them yet. We could say ion was one of them. Forward predicted ion.
Yes, and talking is so important in ion. It's he and you are always saying engage and participate, and it's like in the wake just was like trying to explore all possibilities of language, of form, and it's like you are doing the same but orally, not in a fixed printed text, but in it's weird because Ion says everything is just a replay and everything has already happened. So in a way, even the improvisation in the now is also has already occurred.
And Ion's 2 points. McLuhan had the phrase, crack the voices of silence. That's what Finnegan's wake does. It cracks the silence of print and makes it the language, you don't want to say it come alive, but it goes beyond silence, the way the Finnegan's wake communicates. And then what did you say? So there's the silence. And then what did you just say? Just say a couple of words, remind me, because that was a sidebar. And what were your last words? Finnegan's wake? Something about Finnegan's wake?
Yes, that everything is a replay, and
oh yeah,
even the things in the now have already occurred.
Right, and so Ion says that I have xenarchrony because I live ahead of myself, and I suggest throw this theory right now that if you're living ahead of yourself, that's explained by the fact that you're in touch with the fact it already happened. So I have things mirror me because it's already happened, and by me floating forward, actually going into the past, I guess, is a very inadequate way to explain why xenarchy happens. It involves the point. If you know that everything's already happened, then when you converse, you can move ahead of yourself. So I converse with the global Android meme or the solar Android meme. So it's always talking back to me. And I can talk to the Android meme because I live ahead of myself. You have to beat Ion. I don't know how you would beat Ion, but if there was some competitive thing with Ion, and occasionally people come on and compete in some way with Ion, you have to be pretty perceptive you have to figure out how to live ahead of yourself to keep up with Ion. I hadn't thought of this before, but maybe that's why I can go hours with Ion. I'm out of time. I'm not inside time. And Ion's not inside time. So you're surfing an interface of the already happened, but that implies you already jumped forward and are massaging it. The conversation.
Yes, and in one of the recordings you played lately, the Rewrite recording, Ion says the connection between the group of people and what they're talking about has an effect on the environment. Like he gives the example of some TV shows being done because they are doing the rewrite or other effects, and now we know that this also affects even the chemistry in our bodies and in the environment, that we are not aware what we are creating when we're engaging somebody or saying something. And
well, let me go into this chemistry point. Did you say you said rewrite about a minute ago, right? To create a rewrite, yeah. So you have to remind me what you just said.
Yes, how for example, the connection between a specific group of people
the chemistry
creates.
Yeah, you're very impressed with Ion's presentation of chemistry. So for you, it seems, chemical substances are the base of reality. There's a solidity of, if you were asked to define matter, you would talk about it in chemical terms. And I used to ask Ion that, what's the chemistry of whatever they were discussing? What's the chemistry? But I've learned since Ion that chemistry is not the ground of being. It is for little man in the outer kingdom, but you have the tonalities that are underneath the cells, and the cells are underneath the words. Chemistry is in there, but I would not. My lesson I've got from Ion is experience is happening too fast. If you include all the realities that are happening and already happened, it's happening too fast to be measured in elemental, electron, bonding situations of elements. That is a little man slower reality of looking for solid answers as substance. We gradually with Ion are going to live without the solidity or continuity of the archetypal elements. We're going to live without archetype. And archetype is, in my book, Fatty Communion, I have the tetrad for instant replay on the first page, and it defines archetype as collective pattern recognition. So the collectivity of people bonding in social groups is the sign of the fall. Was that lucidity recollected? What's the phrase?
Yeah, recollected lucidity.
Yes, recollected lucidity. The lucidity is seeing through the bonding process of language and how it got frozen into totems with the ancient tribes, and then got frozen into certain sacred rituals, and then it got frozen into sacred writings. This freezing is not real. It's part of the dance of life, but people might want to get used to the lack of solidity in their being without disappearing, without losing the ability of the conversation to create. You know, Ion goes on about words are your power. I'm going to say conversation is your power. Full frontal nudity of conversation, and that includes the masking. There is a mask that happens, the shifting, so that you can maintain your separateness from a person you're conversing with. That's an interesting thing. People talk to come to get on the same page, but in the long run, they're going to have to separate. That's the drama of cognition. Go ahead.
Yes, because Ion says, for example, I always said, why are they don't just explaining us everything? Why do we have to engage every weekend and ask and ask and ask? And then each person gets a different answer. And well, now I understand. Like there are things like the angel chart. They say they have all the answers, but we have to ask the questions. Like things have to be spoken.
Yeah, I just realized something. The act of speaking, if you're not relying on there's a substance and it goes through decay or it bonds with other elements, those images of chemistry and physics and science, when you're engaging Ion, you're making substance and chemistry with the words that are being emitted in the conversation. So jamming in the present, creating patterns of conversation with a great deal of awareness awareness of the emptiness of it, the vibrant emptiness, that just explained to me how substance is temporarily created by conversation. And McLuhan quoted the Greeks. They considered each word a momentary deity. A word or a few words was a momentary deity, a momentary God. So that's an interesting, it is interesting to me how much McLuhan's writings can apply to what Ion came out of the cage emphasizing in the first couple of years. I mean, in McLuhan's PhD, he quotes a part of Plato where they ask what is it? It's about speech, I think. It's about the basic matter of conversation. Is the quote that McLuhan begins his thesis with from Plato. Socrates is asking, where did words come from? I think that's what it is. And one person says they come from God, and I forget what the other view is. But anyways, the point is that McLuhan was wrestling with the drama of cognition right there in his PhD. So Ion seems to be an update of that process of questioning the role of conversation, the role of being.
Are you falling asleep?
I could.
Yes, maybe we have enough for this one.
No, I can keep going. I could fall asleep, but I don't have to. Carry on. I was not sleeping. Right
Yes,
there.
but what will it
watching
be?
your distorted image. I'm just watching this ridiculous pattern that I didn't have anything to say.
Yes,
So
because I'm uploading a video. That's why you cannot see me, but I can see you. Sometimes the sky breaks a little, but it's okay in general.
Right.
But what will be your theory about these drops of knowledge that we get from Ion, that we have to speak the words and engage them to get to retrieve the knowing? Why will that be? That they don't just tell us.
The drops? Did you relate that to the drops?
Yes, because it's like we have to take the drops, and we get also drops of revelations of knowing.
Yes.
It's not like an avalanche of here you get everything you need to know. Why do you think is so that we have to squeeze him?
Because the art is the dance of conversation. So to create tension and pressure, Ion says you got to ask a question. You got to have that tension. See, there's a subtle tension in conversation of the two-ness in you and the two-ness in me. That means I'm speaking, but I'm looking and listening to what I'm speaking, and I'm bouncing off the two of you responding to me. The thing that's pretending to be, well, take me literally, and then the other part of yourself that's observing the process. Gurdjieff shows that. He shows that in one of Ouspensky's book, the basic triangle of conversation is a pretty sacred symbol in Ouspensky. But, okay, so you were asking...
why do we get these drops of knowledge? Why he just...
Oh, yeah. Why isn't everything said? Well, first of all, there's no position of knowing everything that's profitable. Only books know everything. They write it all out and print it up, and then you have an encyclopedia. But human reality is not based on coming to a finish line. And that's how Ion defines it. The ascended person doesn't stop, is aware of the unstoppability of existence, So speech would be unstoppable. The endless creation of speech, all the while not requiring the creation of speech.
Yes, I remember from Uspensky and the other. What was the name? Gurdjieff. Yes, that they say that the last interval of separation to like go to the higher octave to ascend, or this last interval was small but was like the hardest to overcome. And I was thinking about this isness and artness, this interval that is the distance between you and you, that is separating us from our power, and how these things on the one side, Ion said, are expressed by the degrees of separation, and then on the other side he asked us to ask, and we have this challenge to ask without using degrees of separation.
Well, on one level, besides it being a dance, Ion is seeing all yourselves, seeing everything. So you ask, you position yourself with a question, you position an environmental stance. That's what Ion needs to be able to respond to you and keep it human. That means say some words with some apparent meaning. But Ion is looking at us and sees hundreds or maybe more of you. Might even find it hard to which one is speaking. So if you ask, that creates attention. Because if you are ascended, you don't have any questions. So if you put on a question, you're pretending you're a little person. And then that creates attention and gives a role to Ion. A role to communicate.
Oh.
Yes.
And, yes, but now I was thinking, on the one side, I think that's to overcome the separation on the labyrinth of the mind, because the other drops, the chemistry, go beyond the labyrinth of the mind and start the process anyway in an autonomic way. So this is already solved anyway.
Yes, and also there's where your chemistry comes in. The drops are affecting the chemistry, and for little man, that is a solid reality. The chemistry, that's what you're interested in. What's the chemistry of causation and all the different phenomena that Ion provides? But I was emphasizing the quicksand underneath chemistry, the cancellation of a momentary solidity. So with that in mind, you would ask Ion about chemistry, but you would bring in this level of post-chemistry conversational dance and ask Ion to respond to those words. But you have to create a tension with Ion. That's created by a question.
Yes, because one of the things that might shock persons from Iondom is this fact that we are eternal, and we are eternal also with the physical body. That
yes.
People thought we could only be eternal in etheric, spiritual body. And that's why I got this interest again in the chemistry and in understanding what is this physicality. On the one hand, he explained that we created this solidity with the neutrinos during the fallen state, but as we ascend, I don't understand then what is this solidity, the physical.
As we ascend, you don't understand what?
The physical, the solidity.
Yes, what it is. I think that the physical is pretty tonality-like. It's not solid as the eyeball shows particles. It's wavy. It can be the floating in a sea. That's the physical. It's not this 3D who, what, where, when, why, non-fluidity. It's the fluidity of, it's like when you're swimming, you're making all kinds of ripples. Little spirals are flowing out from you. That's communication. That's what your words are doing. In momentary deities, creating these whirlpools. So the substance is only that pattern floating on the top of the water. It is not as constitutive of the water you're swimming in. And that's what Ion says the image of the gut is a big sea, big lake. That's what you die into. Transition into this huge lake. There's the water. You can say something.
Yes, the archetype of the water is also very interesting. And for example, the Genesis is one of the processes during the fall, the separation of the waters.
Yes, yeah.
And
really important.
One of the things that Ion says is changing is water, because there is less oxygen, and the hydrogen, the bonding is going to be different. There is going to be this living water, or it's already there. And another thing he said that really impressed me was that we age because we cannot sustain the frequency. It's like
cannot sustain the youthful energy, the youthful enthusiasm. Is that what he's saying?
Yes, that so in a way, I think when he says you're teaching us how to talk, that's part of what we're learning, because nobody will believe what you say. You are this old, or your memory is amazing, and your energy, and so I suppose this being young has to do with this learning to talk right. In a way, I don't know.
No, that's true. You can't script conversation. You can have scripted parts for some reasons, but you're not engaging in the present if you're using your memory. So really good conversation is saying words that have meanings, but you're not relying just on the meanings. You're allowing some other tonalities to happen in the exchange that then create other words which are surface effects of more tonalities. Now, people celebrate silence. That was James Joyce's motto: silence, exile, and cunning. They trust someone who doesn't speak a lot. But people have more and more opportunity to engage in conversation today. You could say conversation is obsolete under endorogenic conditions. So that means there's a lot of conversation going on. When I walk the beach every day, I'm walking by people talking, conversing. Have you ever looked at the act of talking among people and say that's the most important activity of humans? Ever thought of that?
No.
Yeah, you thought making your musical compositions was the most important activity, right? Composing, engaging sound.
Well, until now, I really never understood what we were doing on this planet and what it's all about.
Do this.
Yes, until now I thought things were absurd that we don't really understand anything, not even how our own body functions, and I could not understand what we are really doing. What is this all about?
Well, you should have learned from iON that you don't need to understand.
Yes, but
you got to understand that. You have to understand why.
Yes, but I suppose when we met, I was about to transition because I was so losing my frequency and
so you remember that? This is before you met iON. Do you remember being depressed?
Well, the thing, like the only thing that only kept me interested always was electronic music or sound in general. That was the, I can get lost in programming sounds, for example. But so then even that was not
satisfying you.
Delivering, like Zappa says.
Right. Delivering. So you got bored very early and required music, composing to stimulate you. Everything else bored you pretty early?
Yes, because what I thought was my vocation, that I wanted to become a nun, and then I didn't. And I thought the spirit was the most important, or some type of higher aspirations. And
so
nothing could compare to that. But when I heard Ion talking about gaining your power back and your spiritual gifts and all these unlimited possibilities of interacting in parallel worlds, and like I felt like I was expanding, like I felt like I was 14 again, like
yes.
I could learn again, and I had an eternity in front of me.
And you were responding to the content of Ion's conversation.
Well, I just could not stop listening. And I haven't stopped. I listen to something every day. It's like,
right.
I just find it really fascinating. And lately I've been going back to things I learned or I heard at the beginning. And I see how much he was already saying from the beginning. That
yes.
Maybe we are just getting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like this. I have not re-listened to all the paydays we've done. What is it? 2014, February 2014. So a year and a half of paydays. You know, I'm at least there for 3 hours. I have never gone back to hear what would. And I don't catch it all because I'm too busy writing notes in the show. So I know if I went back, I'd be pretty floored by the richness and the anticipation and the improvisation, all that I was doing. I know I'd be impressed. So I'll just be impressed live on payday, then go back and look for extra impression.
Yes, and he's also so funny. That it's just fun to listen to him.
Yes. He's the essence of unpredictability. You do not know what can be said, will be said next. Impossible. Now that happens among humans, but you know that Ion has a vaster repertoire. Don't you use that word in music? Vast repertoire of themes that Ion can engage.
Yes, infinite. But for example, in my case, I thought I will never engage and I will be there talking. It took me a very long time
to get that point, that you could engage with Ion.
Yes. You had to come and then I started actually to,
right.
To
you got the spirit of conversation. You got the spirit of conversation from me, at least and to converse with Ion.
You infected me.
Yeah, can you put your finger on that? What was I doing that made you realize the power of speech and that you wanted to do it with Ion? You had not done it before. But what was it?
Well, the fact that you make very special, very original connections, very original patterns.
Right.
And it's so interesting that I just wanted
You had to
know.
stimulate it. You had to jump in and stimulate your patterns with something.
Yes, and it's like once you talk to Bob, it's very hard to find someone at that level, because even the person I know that knows the most, it's Juan María Alponte. Juan María Alponte, he's a writer and political science professor.
I was thinking about this. Could you go on the internet right now, find a column, and read it to us, translate it? Because I'd like to hear his despondency, because he really is symptomatic of what we're talking about. The authoritative journalist who just can't figure out what's happening now, and he's pretty bummed out by it. Could you go on the internet and find one of his columns right now, and then look at it and translate it for us? Tell us what he's saying. Or is that too hard to do?
Well, one of the last things he posted, it's an article he wrote about how government is really only for the elite. Okay. Government has always been for the elite.
Well, it's government for the government employees, and that includes the president. He's a government employee. So it's for the employees of government.
Yes, you know and then he discusses the collateral effects of that in a society like Mexico, it's extreme, the lack of interest in human life, in human rights, in ecology, because
so he's saying that government. What is he getting from that? He's realized that government's for the elite, so is he advocating no government?
No, like a more participatory type of engagement.
Yeah.
But
he's demanding that. He's demanding that.
Well, he's just analyzing the situation. But
why did you mention engagement while we're talking about him?
I'm sorry? What did you say?
Why did you mention engagement while we were talking about him?
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember why you were saying that.
Well, oh yes, I now I know, because I said it's very hard to find somebody at the same level you can talk about all topics for hours, right. And then the rest of the mortals seem boring, and the thing is that well, I see that they don't know the real hidden ground, even though they think they know a lot and they know everything. Yeah. And I suppose in that situation, you end up making your own conspiracies or your own paranoid fears come out, and you cannot see any real solution.
So, can you come to the point he makes at the end? So he's telling you that government's for the elites. What is he suggesting is an antidote to that?
Nothing.
Nothing.
He's just commenting.
Right, just commenting. Oh, that's interesting. He's just being creative. Creative for himself.
Well, I suppose he thinks that's his role in society, that he's able to see and analyze, but it's hard to. I mean, you cannot be that naive to think you can change the whole system in the world, the whole situation, without something like iron or the RNA drops and some other type of solution. It's really impossible.
I still want you at some point to read me one of his columns, and maybe we'll record it.
Okay, then maybe I stop the recording.